Hey YouTube, my name is Dan. I run a YouTube channel called Backcountry Builds. Despite YouTube being a passion of mine, don't be fooled, I have a very unrelated full-time job. I am not a mechanic by trade, just a guy who grew up all around cars and small engines. As you can see, I'm an idiot, but my goal is to keep on tinkering, provide some video entertainment, and maybe, just maybe, help one of you out along the way. So today's video is about my 4th generation Ram 1500 and my 100,000 miles of ownership, with it being 6 inches taller than all the other stock Ram 1500 nerds around it. Forgive me for the upcoming story time, as it'll all come full circle by the end of the video. First, I want to encourage you to watch episode 1 of this series. Link is in the description, titled Lifting Your Ram 1500 is 6 inches Too Much. You all seem to enjoy it. That video currently sits at over 100,000 views and helped this channel receive its first sponsored product, Todaay fog lights. If you haven't seen that video and are looking for a factory-looking, inexpensive replacement for your cloudy or scratched fog lights, I recommend you take a look. Also, the link is in the description to that as well. So to highlight the goal of today's video, I'll be discussing whether 6 inches of lift is too much, covering the cost, perks, limitations, appearance, performance, capabilities, tire fitment, towing, and warnings based on my over 6 years of ownership and 100,000 miles of driving my lifted Ram. Let's skip back to 2012. I was about 15 years old, living in my childhood home in New England, and kept driving past a totally rotted out 2000 Jeep Wrangler parked behind a nearby shop. Following a few long months of pestering my dad to pull into the lot where it had nearly become one with the earth for $900, that Jeep became mine. I had made it after years and years of watching my dad, who, might I add, is an absolute mechanical mastermind, yet another self-taught gearhead with no actual certifications, resurrect things, small engines, from anything from lawnmowers to ATVs, snowmobiles, jet skis. I had finally purchased my first car, which, of course, was a project. Despite my roots as a GM kid, my parents had owned countless early Jeep Grand Cherokees, and with my purchase of the Wrangler, I too accidentally became a daily driver Mopar guy. After my dad and I swapped in a fresh 40,000 mile junkyard 2.5 liter 4-cylinder into my new-to-me Jeep, a few $1,000s in rotted spring perch frame section replacements and nearly 50 pounds of Bondo later, the yellow Jeep quickly became the perfect high school rig. Despite not having a bed, I made do with the Jeep by towing a snowmobile trailer, which allowed me to pick up lawn care properties and start saving. The topless factor of the Jeep made up for its obvious lack of practicality with only 2 doors and no bed. The Jeep was more than fine for a while, but it snuck up on me. A few years later, I graduated high school, started college in New York. I quickly realized driving a lifted Wrangler on 33s with a 4-banger 2 hours across state lines was far from ideal. Storing the Jeep on campus was not secure with a removable or unzippable top. I had begun my side quest of scouring the internet for lawnmowers to flip, and without a truck bed nor a trailer, I was struggling to transport my new projects, and it was time for a pickup truck. With my newly acquired accidental love for Mopar daily drivers, I immediately flocked to the Dodge pickups. Just like every 18-year-old, I wanted a diesel pickup bad. I dragged my dad to look at countless clapped-out second-gen Cummins with hood stacks before he finally convinced me to smarten up and find a clean 1500 with a 5.7-liter reliable Hemi, especially with my minimal level of mechanical knowledge at the time, which dropped to nearly zero when it came to diesels. He was right. I checked out numerous third-gen 1500s before finding the perfect truck for me. I emptied the bank account to a family friend and purchased his only relatively rusty 2003 Dodge Ram 1500 SLT quad cab. The 03 came with 6 leather seats, already equipped with Borla catback exhaust, rolling on super bulb 35s, a mean-looking cowl-style hood that replaced the previously hail-damaged stock one. The truck had only 88,000 original miles, ran like a top, and most importantly for sake of this video, was already equipped with a 6-inch Fabtech full suspension lift kit. While my friends were paying thousands and struggling to install the then underwhelming off-brand lift kits, I had a pretty bougie setup from the get-go with no installation required. After a few years, I had the truck looking right. The Fabtech lift kit stood the test of time, and I was in love. With college coming to an end and my new career in sight, after nearly 40,000 miles of teenager burnouts resulting in a freshly rebuilt rear end, it was time to upgrade to something a bit more sophisticated and pass on the obnoxiously straight-piped, in-your-face, two-tone with a racing stripe to the next generation teenager to be locally hated. It was time to upgrade. I'd begun looking at numerous early 4th generation 2010 to 2013 Ram 1500s with medium amount of miles. Once again, my dad, with his voice of reason and many hours of gentle convincing, finally made it into my head to get something nicer than I thought I needed. I had been dead set on settling on a $15,000 truck to avoid taking out a loan, but I decided to take it one step higher. The year was 2019, and after looking at multiple 4th-gen Rams, I sourced a single-owner 2017 Ram 1500 as a trade-in at a Ford dealership in Connecticut. The truck was bone stock with just over 33,000 miles, had the 5.7-liter Hemi I was looking for, and was nearly perfect. I opted to sacrifice my leather seats and went for the Tradesman Black Edition with 6 cloth seats, and basically the only creature comfort was a backup camera the size of a Nintendo DS screen. I shortly after sold the 2003 Ram for $7,500, sold my jet skis, and flipped a bunch of lawnmowers, and before I knew it, I had nearly paid off the $27,900 sticker price. I got the truck home and promised myself what every gearhead thinks he can do. Oh, I'm just going to leave it stock. Instead, I did what every 21-year-old does and immediately ordered a lift kit. Now, being that I was approximately 1 month from departing on a 1,000-mile voyage from New England to central Missouri to start my active-duty Army career, I opted to pay my local trusted machine shop / speed shop who had a lift and actually possessed knowledge and experience to properly install a substantial independent front suspension style lift, which would in turn decrease the chances of my front end falling out of the truck somewhere in Illinois. So let's talk about cost. The shop's install cost alone was approximately $1,000. I ordered a 2013 to 2018 Dodge 1500 four-wheel drive 6-inch basic system from Fabtech. The associated part number was FTS 20341, and there's also the I option. Although I cannot source the original receipt, it was approximately $2,000 shipped for the kit in 2019. As I'm creating this video in August of 2025, I checked Fabtech's website, and their current comparable system offered 6-inch basic system with rear performance shocks, which is part number Kilo 3055 for the 2017 Ram 4x4, is priced at $2,946.82, which more than tracks with the inflation rate. So let's talk about perks. The truck, in my opinion, looks amazing. Although the truck itself is probably in need of a paint correction to restore its former glory from 6 years prior, it still turns head. The actual height of the truck is comparable to that of the height of a Ram 2500 with a leveling kit on 35s, but with independent front suspension instead of a front live axle. The truck drives awesome. I had several viewers comment on episode 1 stating that they overland their Ram 1500 with 6-inch lifts and had nothing but great things to say about the ground clearance and offered suspension travel with this class of lift kit. The majority of my off-roading has been limited to getting to and from paved roads to nearby backcountry snowmobile trails. The elephant in the room is that the Ram 1500, in my opinion, is not the first off-road capable vehicle that comes to mind that's intended to receive a substantial lift kit. Although I likely could have towed a snowmobile trailer with my Ram 1500 in stock form to these locations I mentioned before with some decent snow tires, the 35-inch all-terrain or mud-terrain tire and increased ground clearance made light work of the deep snow in parking lots and access trails. At age 21, I purchased the 6-inch kit solely for looks and the ability to cram some 35-inch tires underneath fenders. The end product was accidentally creating a very capable, aggressively looking, yet classy pickup. However, feel free to call it a mall crawler because these 35s run 99% pavement. With regards to tire fitment, I've done some research, and some folks have been able to fit 36 or even 37-inch tires with their Ram 1500s under a 6-inch lift. I cannot speak to that as I've only attempted to run 35s, and in my opinion, I think this is all around the sweet spot for this lift kit category on a 1500. Once you get larger than 35s, the strain on the drivetrain and brakes and lack of drivability multiplies exponentially. Additionally, I have not had to trim any plastic nor fenders and do not rub at all at full lock while steering on a hillside. It's super impressive. So we've talked about the aggressive look, ground clearance, suspension travel, the elephant in the room, mall crawler, independent front suspension versus live axle, increased off-road capabilities. I'm going to get into tire fitment. So now that I've addressed the benefits of installing a 6-inch lift on a Ram 1500, let's get into some overarching limitations. As addressed in the pre-installation notes included earlier in this video, Fabtech highlights the fact that you cannot run factory wheels. OEM wheels and tires cannot be used after the installation of this kit. Larger tire cannot be installed on the OEM wheels. It says it right in the instructions. Fabtech lists the following 3 recommended wheel and tire combinations. You can run a 325, according to them, 65R18 tire on an 18x9 wheel with 4.5-inch back spacing. It says with minor trimming. You can also run a 35 by 13.5 on an 18-inch rim. On an 18-inch rim, 9 inches wide with 4.5-inch back spacing with minor trimming. Or you can do what I did, which is a 35 by 12.5 on a 20. This talks about 20 by 9-inch wheels with 4.5-inch back spacing. So there's an exception to this. Again, I'm not a mechanic, and if you choose to install this lift kit and any tires, do so at your own risk, but I absolutely love the look of these 4th gen Rams lifted on stock wheels. So I went with a 35 by 12.5 on a 20-inch rim, and I'm running 1.5-inch hub-centric wheel spacers, and the truck fitment, in my opinion, is ideal. There are some photos of this truck, including the video, where it's shown rocking 1/2-inch wheel shims, which will also allow the stock wheels to clear the lift kit, but the tuck makes it look like the truck skipped leg day. So let's talk about payload and towing. Fabtech highlights the following. Rear springs may reduce load carrying capacity. Can confirm. There are solutions for this, but being that a 1500 that I was using to tow a tongue-style car hauler trailer that alone weighed 1,600 pounds empty, then I threw a 1968 Chevelle with the engine and transmission still installed, as well as a built 6-liter LS engine, which I hoisted into the passenger seat, as well as everything else that my wife and I owned into the car. It quickly turned into the Sagging Wagon. American Trucks sells an air spring kit, which is basically an inflatable football you can jam inside your rear coils to keep from Cali leaning all the way to your destination with your longer rear springs, which are more susceptible to compressing under a lighter load than factory. However, when towing my 19.5-foot boat or even a 24-foot camper, I did not feel the need to install heavier duty springs nor an air spring kit. Prior to purchasing the car hauler, I had a non-adjustable 5-inch drop style trailer hitch, which worked fantastic for towing snowmobile trailers, jet skis, boats, etc. When I purchased the car hauler and began towing heavier, I opted to purchase an adjustable drop hitch from B&W Hitches, which allows me to further fine-tune the tongue height for towing with the dovetail. In other words, I can trick my trailer into thinking my truck is stock height, and I'm none the wiser behind the wheel. With several cross-country and out-of-country trips with this truck, towing a substantial load, I can, without exaggeration, say this lifted Ram 1500 tows fantastic. In the pre-installation notes, Fabtech highlights, warning, installation of the system will alter the center of gravity of the vehicle and may increase rollover as compared to stock. It may seem obvious, but there's no way around this. Lift kits increase the overall height and alters the steering angles, overall geometry, and inherently increases rollover risk. Being that I had no experience driving any vehicle for extended periods of time that was not lifted, this was nothing new to me. I had only driven lifted vehicles. Full disclosure, now that my occupation includes a company car, if you will, and marrying my wife means full access to a stock height SUV, I have recently spent a lot more time driving factory height vehicles, and getting behind the wheel of my 6-inch lifted 1500 has become more noticeable as a less desirable trait for driving my truck long distances, but this may be a side effect of me getting older and more mature. So a few notes about utility. Obviously, the tailgate rests at a higher location, meaning getting things in and out of bed may be inherently more difficult, but like I said previously, I was none the wiser with my 2003 Ram having been the same height. I can use a ramp to get ATVs and dirt bikes in and out without too much issue, and finding a slope is helpful whether your truck is lifted or stock. Regardless, I still love the way this truck drives and looks. As I stated in episode 1, the truck would get about 17 to 20 miles per gallon on the highway in stock form and about 14 to 16 miles per gallon around town. Over the course of 100,000 miles, I'm seeing about 15 miles per gallon and up to 17 miles per gallon on the highway. This cylinder shutdown works wonders, and I can't believe I'm getting comparable fuel efficiency on 35s with a lifted truck to that of my wife's Grand Cherokee. However, when towing a decent load, she's no diesel, and the efficiency naturally drops to about 10 to 12 miles per gallon. So leave it in the comments. What do you think? Is 6 inches too much? Are 35s a sweet spot? The channel's next goal is to reach 5,000 subscribers, so if you enjoyed this content and want to see more, feel free to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe for more content like this. Thanks for watching.